Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. We are continuing the series of Parliament. In this lecture, we are going to discuss budget in Parliament. This budget is very important topic for both the prelims and as well as mains. So let's get started. Before getting into this topic, let us see some of the introduction. So first of all, what is a budget? Here budget in a simple way we can say the estimate of the government regarding the receipts and also expenditure of that financial year. So this is a simple definition of the budget. If you open the constitution and see the constitution, you do not find this word budget in our constitution. But instead of budget we can say there is a word that is annual financial statement, which is talked in the article 112 of Indian Constitution. So if you see the article 112 of Indian Constitution, it explicitly talks about the annual financial statement. So if you see some of the constitutional provisions of the budget, so this budget will be introduced. Who will introduce? Introduced by the finance minister. But according to the constitution, there is one important provision that the president has a duty to start this budget. Okay, so budget should be laid and caused by the president, and this budget which is introduced in the house by the financial minister or the finance minister. And if you see during the 1924 our budget, it is a common budget, but after this 1924, after the Ackworth committee report, we divided our budget into two types. First one is railway budget and the second one is union budget. So why there is a division of the budget? Because at that time most of the revenue to the government of India that is coming from the railways. So because of this we divide our budget into two types according to the Ackworth committee report. So till 2017 we have the two budgets, railway budget and the union budget. After 2017 there was a Niti Aayog committee, and this committee was headed by the Vivek Debroy. So according to this committee report, it said that there is no need of the two budgets. So, and from 2017 onwards, there is only one budget, that is union budget. In this lecture, we are going to see each and every detail which is important for prelims and also mains regarding the budget. And as well as we are going to look into the stages of this budget. So in these stages, there are mainly 6 stages. The first one is introduction of the bill. Second one is general discussion. And later on vote on the demands of grants. And later on we can see there will be the appropriation bill and also financial bill. So in between third step, it is the departmental standing committee. So there is a scrutiny of the departmental standing committee that is seen in the third step. And this is a very important step in the process of this budget. So let's get started and let us see what is written in our Lakshmikant. And let us see each and every point which is very important for the prelims as well. So first important point, that is the constitution refers to the budget as annual financial statement. So in the other words, we can say the term budget which is not present in our constitution, which is nowhere written in our constitution. So the popular name of the budget that is written in our constitution, that is annual financial statement. And it will be dealt explicitly by the article 112 of the Indian Constitution. So you have to remember this 112 which talks about this annual statement, that is simply it is a budget, and the budget, the word which is nowhere written in our constitution. So these three are very important for the prelims. And let us move further. The budget, it is the statement of estimated receipts and the expenditure of the government of India in a financial year. And this financial year which begins from the April 1st and ends on the 31st March of the every following year. And in addition to this estimation of the receipts and the expenditure, this budget will also contain many other elements. this budget, it is not a single bill, it is a bunch of bills. It is a very bulky. So let us see what all are included in this budget. This budget includes, the first one is estimates of the revenues and the capital receipts, and also ways and means to raise the revenue. It also contains estimates of expenditure. And if you are talking this expenditure, it can be two types. The first one is charged expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India, and the next one is expenditure which is made from the Consolidated Fund of India. And if you see this Consolidated Fund of India, which is talked in the Article 266 of Indian Constitution. So in this regard, you should remember this article as well. Article 266 of Indian Constitution, which talks about Consolidated Fund of India. And the next one is, this budget also contains the details of actual receipts and the expenditure of the closing financial year, and the reasons for the deficit or the surplus that happened in the last financial year. And also it contains economic and the financial policy of the coming year, that is regarding the taxation proposals as well as the prospects of revenue, spending program, and also introduction of the new schemes or any project. So these all are included in our budget. So because of this budget is a very bulky. It is not a single bill, it is a bunch of bills. And till 2017, the government of India had two budgets. Those two budgets are railway budget and the general budget. So if you see this railway budget, it is very different compared to that of this general budget. So what are all included in this railway budget and the general budget? So if you see in the railway budget, it includes estimates of receipts and expenditure of only Ministry of Railways. So what about this general budget? This general budget, which contains estimates of receipts and expenditure of all the ministries of the Government of India except this Ministry of Railways. So these are the some of the differences between the railway budget and the general budget. So if you see the history of this budget in India during the Britishers' time, so if you see the railway budget which was separated from this general budget in the year 1924. If you see before this 1924, we have a common budget for the railways and as well as a general budget. So in 1924, there is a separation of this budget into railway budget, and the next one is the general budget is happened in the year 1924 because of the recommendations of Ackworth Committee report of 1921. So because of this recommendation of this Ackworth Committee, that led to the bifurcation of the budget into the railway budget and the general budget. So what are the reasons or the objectives of this separation of this budget? So let us see these objectives. It may be important for the mains point of view. So the first important objective here is to introduce the flexibility in the railway finance. Mainly to introduce the flexibility in the railway finance, we divided this budget into the railway budget and the general budget, because most of the revenue that is coming to the Government of India mainly through this railways at that time. And the next one is to facilitate the business approach of the railway policy, to bring up the business approaches in this railway policy. There is a need of this separate railway budget. And the next one is to secure the stability of the general revenues by the providing an assured annual contribution from the railway revenues. So this is also one of the key objective. And the next one is to enable the railways to keep their profits of their own development. And whatever the profits are coming from this railways, that can be used for the development of the railway. So this is the important key objective behind this separation of this budget into railway budget and the general budget. So in 2017, central government merged the railway budget into the general budget, and hence at present we have only one budget, that is called as a union budget from 2017 onwards, based on the Niti Aayog committee, which was headed by the Bibek Debroy. Okay. And let us see the constitutional provisions regarding the enactment of budget. The first important one is the President of India shall, in respect of any financial year, cause to lead before both the houses of the Parliament a statement of estimated receipts and the expenditure of the Government of India that year. That means he should cause to lead before this budget before these two houses. So it is a duty of the president, and it is a compulsory or the mandatory duty that should be done by the president, because here it is a shall. Shall is the word that is present, not the may. Whenever we see the shall word is present, then it is mandatory. So this thing you should remember. And the next one is no demand for a grant shall be made except on the recommendation of the president. Again, this is a very important for the prelims. And the next one is no money shall be withdrawn from the consolidated fund of India except under appropriation which is made by the law. And the next one is no money bill imposing the tax that shall be introduced in the Parliament except on the recommendations of the president, and that bill shall not be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. That means indirectly it is talking about money bill. So when we talked about the money bill should introduced in the House with the prior permission of the president, and it should be introduced only in the Lok Sabha but not in the Rajya Sabha. Is it correct? Will you remember all those things? Correct? So the next one is no tax shall be levied or collected except by an authority of law. And the next important point here is Parliament can reduce or abolish the tax but do not have the power to increase the tax. And the Constitution has also defined the relative roles or the positions of both the houses of the Parliament, mainly regarding this enactment of the budget. So if you see, Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha have the equal powers, and the Lok Sabha has the more powers regarding compared to that of the Rajya Sabha regarding the budget. We can see equal powers, and also Rajya Sabha has more powers. So if you see, whenever we see Lok Sabha have the equal powers regarding the Rajya Sabha, that is in the introduction stage and as well as in general discussion. So in these two stages, in the introduction and the general discussion stage, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they play an important role. Then what about the voting of the demand of grants? Only it is an exclusive right of the Lok Sabha but not Rajya Sabha. As we know, whenever the money bill which is introduced, it should be passed by the Rajya Sabha to the Lok Sabha within 14 days. If at all this Rajya Sabha will not pass within this 14 days, then we can say the bill deemed to be passed in both the houses. So we can see the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha having the equal role in the introduction stage and also in the general discussion stage regarding the enactment of the budget. And regarding the passing of the bill, Lok Sabha has the more powers than compared to that of the Rajya Sabha. So if you see this video completely, then you will completely understand what I am saying here. And if you see here, a money bill or a finance bill that is dealing with the taxation cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. That means money bill cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. It can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. And the next one is Rajya Sabha has no power to vote on the demand for the grants, and it is the exclusive privilege of Lok Sabha. That means Rajya Sabha do not have any role regarding the voting on the demand for grants. And the next one is Rajya Sabha should return the money bill or the finance bill to Lok Sabha within 14 days. And the Lok Sabha also enjoys this, that is, can either accept or even reject the recommendations which are made by this Rajya Sabha in this regard, that is in this money bill. So we can see Rajya Sabha have the more power than compared to that of this So here we can see the Lok Sabha have the more power compared to that of this Rajya Sabha regarding this bill. And the next one is the estimates of expenditure that is embodied in the budget shall show separately the expenditure which is charged from the Consolidated Fund of India and the expenditure which is made from the Consolidated Fund of India. If you are talking about the expenditure, we can say there are two types of the expenditure. The first one is charged expenditure and the next one is expenditure which is made from the Consolidated Fund of India. So there is a difference between this charged expenditure and the expenditure made. So regarding this charged expenditure, there will be no voting that happen in the house. Only they will go for the mere discussion on this charged expenditure. And regarding this expenditure made, they will go for the voting as well. So this is the major difference between the charged expenditure and the expenditure made from the Consolidated Fund of India. The next one is budget shall distinguish the expenditure on the revenue account from the other expenditure as well. So these are some of the things which are very important that you should remember regarding the budget. So let us see the charged expenditure. So this budget mainly contains two types of the expenditure. The first one is the charged expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India and the next one is expenditure which is made from the Consolidated Fund of India. So if you are talking about the charged expenditure, it is not votable by the Parliament. Only they will go for the mere discussion of this expenditure. And let us see the examples of this charged expenditure which is given in our Lakshmikant. So we can see the emoluments and also allowances of the presidents and also other expenditure relating to his office and as well as salaries and allowances of chairman, deputy chairman, speaker and also deputy speaker, and salaries, allowances and pensions of the judges of the Supreme Court and as well as the pensions of the judges of the High Court. So you should remember here regarding the High Courts, the salaries of the judges which are given from the Consolidated Fund of the state, but only pensions will comes under the charged expenditure of this Consolidated Fund of India. So this is a very important prelims point. So the salaries of these judges of the High Courts will come up from the Consolidated Fund of State. Only the pensions will come from this Consolidated Fund of India. So please remember this point. And the next one is salaries, allowances and pensions of the Comptroller Auditor General of India, simply CAG. Salaries, allowances and the pensions of the chairman and the members of the UPSC and also administrative expenses of this Supreme Court, the office of the CAG and also UPSCs, which are including like salaries, allowances, pensions and also the persons serving of these offices all comes under the charged expenditure, and also debt charges for which the Government of India it is liable, including the interest as well as sinking fund charges and redemption charges and other expenditure which is relating to the raising of the loans and the services and the redemption of the debt. So whenever we are having any debt or the borrowing from the other country, we need to pay the interest. So this will comes under the charged expenditure of the CFI, Consolidated Fund of India. And the next one is any sum which is required to satisfy any judgment or any decree or any award of any other court or any arbitral tribunal, that will also comes under the charged expenditure. And the next one is any other expenditure which is declared by the Parliament, that will also comes under the charged expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India. So these are some important facts regarding the budget. So let us move to stages in the enactment of the budget. So whenever you are seeing the stages, there are mainly 6 stages. The first one is presentation of budget, second one is general discussion, third one is scrutiny by the departmental standing committees, and next one is voting on demand for grants, next one is passing of appropriation bill, and the sixth one is passing of finance bill. So these are all the important steps that should follow for the enactment of the budget. So you have to know clearly what is this budget, because this budget speech, it is very important for the prelims. You can expect at least 2 questions every year from this budget speech. So you have to know the entire process of the budget, how it is followed and how it is passed. So let's get started with the stages in the enactment of the budget. The first and foremost step is a presentation of the budget. So conventionally, normally, the budget is presented in the Lok Sabha but not in the Rajya Sabha. And the finance minister, on the last working day of February, he will present the budget, and this is called as a budget speech. But what happened since 2017 onwards, the presentation of the budget has been advanced to the 1st February. They are not presenting on the last working day of February, but they are presenting this budget from the 2017 onwards on the 1st February. And the finance minister mainly presents this budget with a speech, and this speech, it is commonly called as a budget speech. So every year you need to download this budget speech and you have to read this budget speech. It is very important for the prelims. There is no need to study entire budget, but you have to refer only this budget speech and it is enough for your prelims. And at the end of this budget speech in the Lok Sabha, then budget is laid before the second house, that is in the Rajya Sabha, mainly through any other representative in the Rajya Sabha. And in this Rajya Sabha also they can only discuss it, and this Rajya Sabha do not have the power to vote on the demands for grants. So if you see this budget documents which are presented to the parliament, it comprises of many things. So these things include budget speech and also annual financial statement and the demand for grants, appropriation bill, financial bill, and also some statements which are mandated under FRBM Act, and also macroeconomic framework statement and fiscal policy strategy statement, medium term fiscal policy statement, expenditure budget and the receipts budget. So these are the some of the things or the some of the documents which are present in the budget. And not only that, we also have the expenditure profile, memorandum explaining the provisions in the finance bill, budget at a glance and the outcome budget. So these all are the documents which are present in a single budget. So these are the things that you should remember. It may be important for the prelims. We cannot guess what is important, okay? So we should remember all the things. So let us see the second step, that is general discussion. So this general discussion normally begins after few days after the presentation of the budget in the house. And this general discussion will also happen in the both the houses. That means Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha have the equal role regarding the introduction as well as a general discussion. And this general discussion which happens for 4 to 3 days in the both the houses, that is in the Lok Sabha and also in the Rajya Sabha as well. So at this stage of general discussion, Lok Sabha can discuss the budget as a whole or in the parts. It is based on the government. And at the end of this general discussion, even finance minister have a general right to reply at the end of this discussion. So this is about the second part. And the third stage here is scrutiny by departmental committees. So if you see, we have 24 departmental standing committees. So after the general discussion of the budget, then the house are adjourned for about 3 to 4 weeks. In these 3 to 4 weeks, each and the demand which is made by the ministry will be detailedly scrutinized by these 24 departmental standing committees. They will commonly examine and discuss in detail the demand for the grants of the concerned ministries, and they will prepare a report on them. And these reports will be submitted in both the houses of the parliament, that is in the Lok Sabha and also Rajya Sabha. These will be submitted. Okay, so this is about the scrutiny by the departmental committees. And the next step is a voting on the demands for the grants. So this is an important step. So in this step, Based on the reports which is given by the Departmental Standing Committee, the Lok Sabha will take up the voting of the demands for the grants. The demands are presented ministry wise. For example, we can say the Ministry of Sports want 1000 crores in this year. For example, Ministry of Agriculture want 1 lakh crore rupees. For example, Ministry of MSME, Ministry of Electricity, Ministry of Power. So we have different ministries. So there will be from 100 to 110 demand of grants every year. That will be vary from one year to another year. We cannot say exactly these number of the grants will be made. So it will be vary from year to year. That may be from 100 to 110 every year. So each and every ministry want the money to implement any policy or any new scheme or the continuation of the earlier scheme, correct? So they will come up with the demands, and based on the reports which are given by this Departmental Standing Committee, there will be the voting of these demands that happens only in the Lok Sabha but not in the Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha have the exclusive power regarding the voting of the demand of the grants but not the Rajya Sabha. So this is again important prelims fact. And a demands become a grant only after duly voted. You have to remember two important points in this step of the voting on demands for grants. The first one is the voting of these demands for these grants. It is the exclusive privilege or the power of the Lok Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha do not have any power regarding this voting of demands. And the next one is voting. It is confined to the only votable part of the budget but not on the expenditure which is charged from the Consolidated Fund of India. So whenever we are talking about the charged fund, charged expenditure, it will be just mere discussion will be happening in the house but not voting. Voting only on the expenditure which is made from the Consolidated Fund of India but not on the charged expenditure. And the next important point here is each demand is voted separately by the Lok Sabha. During this stage, members of parliament can discuss the details of the budget, and they can also have the power to move the motions. So whenever they are moving the motions, they can reduce any demand for grant. Such type of the motions are called as cut motions. So there are normally three kinds of these cut motions. The first one is policy cut motion. So what is this policy cut motion? It is a disapproval of the policy. There is no need of this policy, and the demand for the grants which is reduced to 1 rupee. That means entire policy which is rejected. And whenever this policy cut motion which is passed, the members can also advocate an alternate policy as well. And the next one is economy cut motion. So in this economy cut motion, that means if at all, let us see the hypothetical figure here. That is, Ministry of Sports demanded, let us say 1000 crore rupees for the financial year. So here there may be the economic cut motion that is passed, and whenever this economic cut motion is passed, some amount of the money can be reduced from the demand which is made by this Ministry of the Sports. So this is called as economic cut motion. So whenever you see this cut motion, these cut motions are majorly passed by the opposition party. And if you see who will be in the majority in the house will be the ruling party, and these will be passed by the opposition party, and opposition party will be the minority in the Lok Sabha, correct? So whenever the majority party people will be from the ruling party and opposition party will be in the minority, whenever these opposition party are passing these motions, cut motions, they will be never passed. Is it clear? And the next one is token cut motion. This token cut motion, it ventilates a specific grievance that is within the sphere of responsibility of the government. So whenever this token cut motion is passed, there will be the deduction of 100 rupees from the demand of the grant. This is about the cut motions. And a cut motion to be admissible, that must satisfy some conditions. So let us see those conditions as well. So these conditions will be important for the prelims point of view. The first one is it should relate to the one demand only, and it should be clearly expressed and should not contain arguments or defamatory statements, and it should be confined to only one specific matter. It should not make any suggestions or amendments or repeal of any existing laws. It should not refer a matter that is not primarily the concern of the union government, and also it should not relate it to the expenditure which is charged from the Consolidated Fund of India. That means whenever we are talking about the charged expenditure, it is not votable, only we will go for the mere discussion in the House. And this cut motion should not related to a matter that is under adjudication by the court, and it should not raise a question of the privilege. So we are going to discuss this privilege in the next session, don't worry about that. And it should not revive the discussion on a matter on which a decision has been taken in the same session. So these are some of the conditions that you can understand easily. Okay. And the next important one is, on the last day of the days which were allocated for the discussion and the voting on the demand of the grants. So if at all there are any demand of the grants, that should be put out, and all those demands on that votes will be discussed in that last day, and they will be put directly into the vote, that is called as guillotine session. And the next step is passing of appropriation bill. So if you see in our constitution, there is an important provision that says that no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund of India, that is according to Article 266 of Indian Constitution, except by the appropriation which is made by law. So if at all there is no appropriation which is made, then there is no right to remove a single penny from this Consolidated Fund of India. So because of that, we should go for the appropriation bill. It should be introduced to provide the appropriation, that means permission to remove the money from the Consolidated Fund of India, mainly to meet the grants which are voted by the Lok Sabha. That means the different ministries will give the different demands. So to give the money to those demands, that should be given from the Consolidated Fund of India. So if at all there is no appropriation that is can be done, then there is no permission to withdraw a single penny from this Consolidated Fund of India. So that should be the appropriation that should be made mainly to meet the grants which are voted by the Lok Sabha, and also expenditure that is charged on this Consolidated Fund of India, mainly to remove the money to meet the grants which are made by these ministries, and also to meet the expenditure that is charged from the Consolidated Fund of India. And this appropriation bill will becomes an appropriation act after it is assented, that is keeping the signature by the President. And this appropriation act will authorizes or legalizes the payments from this Consolidated Fund of India. Okay, so this is about the appropriation bill. So if you see all this, you will understand this. Government cannot withdraw money or a single penny from this Consolidated Fund of India till the enactment of this appropriation bill happened. Okay, and the next one is passing of financial bill. So this is the last step of the enactment of the budget. So the financial bill or the finance bill, it is introduced to give effect to the financial proposals of the Government of India of this following year. And it is subjected to all the conditions which are applicable to the money bill, unlike this appropriation bill. And amendments that can be moved in the case of the financial bill, that is regarding the reducing or abolishing any tax but not increasing the tax. And this Finance Act, it mainly legalizes the income side of the budget, and it will complete the process of this enactment of the budget. So whenever we are passing this financial bill, then it is the end for this enactment of the budget. So in this session, we try to understand each and every aspect which is important regarding the prelims and also mains point of view regarding the budget. I hope this topic is very clear. By this, we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to my channel. Please do like, share and comment my videos. For the notes, please refer your Lakshmikant.